So back in 2013, we found out we were pregnant with our second child. My name is Jennifer Nunley, and I have a 9-year-old daughter named Alyssa, a 4-year-old daughter named Claire, and my husband's name is Brett. We were elated to have another baby on the way. You know, everything was exciting. So when I was about 5 weeks pregnant, I was falling asleep and I had a dream of this name Claire Elise. And I remember thinking, if I remember this name in the morning, I need to look up what it means. So I looked it up. Claire means clear and bright, and Elise means my God is a promise. And I thought it was pretty, but it really didn't mean anything to me. I was like, well, yeah, God promises things. Like, that was the extent of it. It was pretty. And I went on my way, but that name would not leave me. The name Claire Elise would not leave my mind. We went to an early ultrasound in December because we wanted to tell our family at Christmas what the gender was going to be. And they told us it was a boy. And I was shocked because that name was so undeniable for me. Like, that name, I knew it had to be, but it was a boy, and I was so confused. We went to our 20-week ultrasound, and I remember the midwife coming in, and she said, Jennifer, it doesn't look good. And she started to cry, and I started to cry, and she told us that there was no amniotic fluid around him, and that all she kept saying was, that's not good, this doesn't look good. I remember I got in the car and just started to cry. And I remember God asking me, he said, are you willing to sacrifice your Isaac for me like Abraham did? And in that moment, like, I said yes, because what other choice? Like, if this is gonna happen, if he's not gonna make it, I want to go willingly. I want God to know that I trust him in it, and that like, there's no other choice. It's not like, no, I'm gonna fight you on this. I trust you, and I had to trust him with it. Babies urinate in utero, and that urine is their amniotic fluid. They swallow that amniotic fluid, and that's what develops their lungs. That's what grows their lungs, that's what develops their body. Then they process that, they urinate again, and it just keeps processing. Isaac had a blockage where he could not urinate. So all of the urine was building up in his bladder, which was backing up into his kidneys, which was backing up into the rest of his body. Worse than any of that, because he couldn't urinate, there was no fluid. So his lungs couldn't develop. There was nothing for him to swallow to develop his lungs. So she said he will either die in utero, he will be stillborn, he will die during labor or shortly after birth. She said there's no hope. That was January 22nd. We went through the next few months just trying to process that, trying to understand, trying to carry a pregnancy that we knew wasn't going to make it. And it was just, all of the sadness, the anger, the heartbreak you can imagine, but the things that I didn't expect were just going through grocery stores. And I remember a sweet little old lady saying, how excited are you? Is it a boy or a girl? Or they'd ask Alyssa, are you excited to be a big sister? And like, I had to make the decision. I'm just going to tell them we're excited and we're just going to move on. And I remember several little old ladies, I just couldn't. And I remember saying, oh, he's not going to survive, he's not going to make it. And I just remember the shock in their faces, but I couldn't keep it inside sometimes. I just needed to talk to someone. I remember there were so many times when I wanted the pregnancy to be over. And I just wanted it to be over with. I wanted to start the grieving. I felt like I was just waiting for my son to die, and it was agony. And I couldn't figure out how to live in that in-between, because it was so lonely and so painful and so broken. So there were some days I just wanted the pregnancy to be over. I just wanted to start the grieving process. And there were other times I never wanted him to be born because I knew that was the end. I remember one night I was laying in bed and Isaac just kept kicking me and kicking me and kicking me. And I was like, just let me sleep. I was mad. I was like, I just need sleep. I can't handle the emotion of this right now. And I remember putting my hand on my stomach and like stopping his kick, and he stopped, and then I moved my hand and he kicked again. And I put my hand back and he stopped, and then he kicked again when I took it off. And it was God in that moment. He said, you need to cherish every moment of this because it is going to stop one day. And this is the only game you're ever going to play with your son. So I just, for a long time, we just kept pushing back and forth. And that from that moment, I just chose to cherish it. I chose to embrace the moment I was living in because it was going to end. And the horrible grief was gonna start all too soon. The weekend of Alyssa's 3rd birthday, she wanted to go to a Braves game and the aquarium in Atlanta. So we did that, and my labor started while we were in Atlanta. We got to the hospital and Isaac was born 15 minutes after we got there. Our midwife just happened to be there. We had wanted to go to a high-risk hospital, but we couldn't make it because I was ready to push, so we just happened to stop at the one that she was making rounds at. She was there for the delivery, and he was alive, and we got to hold him. Alyssa got to come in and meet him. We got the sweetest video of her just loving on him. Our parents got to hold him, and he lived for 3 hours and 20 minutes. It was just surreal. It was so beautiful and so happy and so normal, but we knew it wasn't gonna last. And it's just that weird tension again of peace and pain. But he lived for 3 hours and 20 minutes and then he was gone. And we were just left, just us, just me and Brett in the hospital room, and trying to figure out, what do you do? I said I wouldn't want him to stay in the room with us because it was just too hard. And then when they offered to take him away from me, I knew he was going to a morgue, and I knew that was lonely and cold, and there was no way I could send him, so he stayed with us until I checked out the next day. The next morning, we were sent home because there was no reason to stay. And I wanted to get back to Alyssa. I wanted to be able to hug my child and have him hug me back, and I just really needed her hug. So that day was by far the worst day of my life, leaving him. It was harder than the day he died because the day he died was also the day he lived. So there was hope in that, there was joy in that. But leaving him at the hospital was the darkest grief that I've known. And I can't describe what the months after that. I didn't know myself anymore. It was like I wasn't me. I was angry, I was lonely, I was hurt, I was sad, all of these emotions. But at the same time, I had hope because, the whole time God had said, I'm with you. And I had held to that hope, and I knew he was with me, and I had that hope. But I was lonely, and there was no one that could understand. As much as they wanted to, no one could understand my pain. So I was just struggling and trying to process that. And I kind of felt God whisper to me that he was going to use it, and that it wasn't going to always be that hard. It wasn't always going to hurt that bad. So I told God, I said, I want Isaac's story to mean something. I want you to use this. I don't want Isaac's life to be for nothing. I want it to change me in a way that makes his life worth it, that makes his life known to people. And I feel like starting then, God was able to use me, and God was able to change the story from one of just complete brokenness to showing me the hope in it and showing me his presence. I could look back and see all the little people that had come along and shown him to me that I hadn't been able to see in the moment. And I'm like, you were there. You did see me through that. I wasn't alone. But it didn't discount all the pain. It didn't take all the pain away. It wasn't like, oh God, you were there, that was awesome. Because it was still the most broken I'd ever been. But there was beauty in it. And I feel like that's what I've been learning in the years since, is just finding the beauty in brokenness and seeing that God can use horrible things. And I'm not gonna be ever the same person that I was before Isaac. And I don't wanna be anymore. I don't wanna be that person anymore, because who I am now is different because of him. He changed me, and I want that. I'm glad he changed me.
My name is Amanda Newman. I'm the artist behind Artistic Therapy. So Jennifer and I met several years ago through mutual friends. I had heard pieces of her story along the way. I had heard about the loss of her child, and I knew that was something that she shared with people. I knew it was something she was comfortable with. I think she's able to share her story in a way that is so healing. It's not just sharing her story, but she disciples girls and she disciples couples as they go through the loss of something so precious and so dear. And I think every time Jennifer shares her story, and every time someone is discipled by that, and the Lord receives glory and there's hope given, I think that Isaac's testimony and his legacy grows. He has so much value, and he has so much purpose, and he'll have crowns to lay at Jesus' feet one day. as his story, as the story of his death, brings light and brings life. And I feel like the Lord receiving glory from that is the most beautiful gift that his life will ever put in the world. And if that's really truly our purpose, I think sharing that testimony and sharing that hope and sharing that reminder that this isn't the end, but it's the beginning. And there's so much more. There's so much more to the story. And I want people to be able to look at a painting and remember that heartbeat will continue, and that heartbeat, they can give that heartbeat renewed life by sharing those stories and sharing that hope.
So about 7 months later, I got pregnant again. We found out it was a little girl, and we obviously named her Claire Lise. And it kind of came full circle right then, that God gave me that name when I was 5 weeks along. He knew the pain that was coming with Isaac. He knew how horrible that road was going to be, how devastating it was going to be, how much it would break me. But he didn't give me a dream that told me all the pain was coming. He gave me a dream of the hope that was afterwards. He gave me a dream of that name that means God is a promise. My God is a vow. He kept his promise. He never left me through all that. He was there with me. He saw me through the pain. He saw me through the hope. He saw me through the loneliness, all of it. He was with me, and he knew it was coming. And I feel like that's kind of the story he's given for my life, is I want to find the beauty in all of the brokenness. I want to use the brokenness that he gives me and let him use it. I want to be an open vessel for him, whatever he wants to do with that.